I need to be in some backwoods redneck town so that I can feel beautiful. I feel skinny, but I'm not. I don't know, I feel like there have already been a few red flags. I feel like I'm losing the battle today. I feel like I'm losing the battle. I can't wait to see them racing for the first time at Daytona next month because I feel the need for speed. I feel invisible to you. I feel some art coming up. I feel sassy. I feel so white trash right now. I've been feeling bored and desperate for attention. I've kissed numerous other boys, and it hasn't felt good. The kisses felt messy and wrong, but kissing Lucas feels beautiful and almost spiritual. I wouldn't hide it if society didn't make me feel like I needed to. I feel in love with Carolyn. I feel so naughty. I feel these weirdos are actually an asset to college life. I love how I feel today. So We Feel Fine uses something that I often call passive observation. And what I mean by that is that it passively observes the people that are covered by this project as they're living their lives. And this is in opposition to asking people directly. And the reason that I like passive observation is because I think it leads to very honest, candid findings, because people don't know that they're being watched. They're just going about their lives as usual. So that's a technique that I like to use a lot. But it can also be useful to ask people directly sometimes. And that's a different approach, which I explored in a project that came right after We Feel Fine called the Time Capsule, which was commissioned by Yahoo. And the Time Capsule was designed to take a fingerprint of the world in 2006. And we did that by selecting 10 very simple universal themes and affiliating with each of those themes a simple open-ended question. So things like, what do you love? What makes you angry? What makes you sad? This was all translated into 10 languages and then posed to the world for 1 month in October of 2006. And people could then respond to those questions using one of 5 simple techniques: words, pictures, sound, videos, and drawings. And people submitted some amazing stuff into the time capsule, and it came from all over the world in many different languages, and then the contents were sealed up and donated to the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, where they'll be unveiled again in 2020. And this event was punctuated by a really amazing 3-day extravaganza, really, down in the desert outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is in the southwest of the United States. And for 3 straight nights, the contents of the time capsule were projected onto the ancient red rock canyon walls of the Jemez Pueblo, which is a sacred site. And the contents were also translated into binary code and beamed into outer space using a laser. Which is that green line that you can see rising from the desert floor and then bouncing back off of the mirror. And then you see this amazing pyramid of light that was created overhead using 30 laser beams at a 1-mile diameter. And I was out here in the desert. It was very cold, and you could see millions of stars. The sky was so dark, and I was up on this distant hill taking this photograph, and I thought there was something really amazing about all of these human stories being projected up into the night sky. And when I was looking at that, I started to think about the night sky and think about how humans have actually always projected their great stories into the night sky. And famously, the Greeks created a lot of constellations that we are aware of still today, like this one, Orion the Hunter, which you can always identify by the 3-star belt. And I started thinking a lot about this process of constellation making, and whether if we could make new constellations today, in today's night sky, what would those be, and how would we go about deciding? Would we establish some international panel of experts who would then vote? Would it be put to the masses in a truly populist referendum, or would there be some other technique? And based on what I do, I was interested in trying to look to the data to answer this question. So I worked with a company in New York called Daylife, which I was working with at the time, to use their global news data. Daylight tracks about 10,000 news sources in the English language all around the world. And using the news data collected from Daylight, try to understand what are the things that are getting the most coverage internationally in the world, and therefore using that as a proxy for understanding the things that are most important to the largest number of people in the world. And that all led to this project called Universe, which is all about trying to understand whether there's a mythology that exists today that's a global mythology. And this is in opposition to We Feel Fine, which very much focuses on the small-scale stories of individual people living their individual lives. Universe, on the other hand, is much more concerned with whether there might be some set of global stories that are affecting all of our lives. And so Universe presents an interactive night sky, the background of which is a shifting color field reminiscent of an aurora borealis. And the color of that shifting color field can be controlled just by touching this single line of color down here at the bottom. And then these stars that move across the sky are not just arbitrary points of light, but they actually connect to specific things that have happened in the real world. And so as I move my mouse around, you can start to see that some of these stars begin to connect to one another. You can see that the outline of a human head here, and the beginnings of a word over here, and another head but smaller. So I can turn all of those on, and those would represent the constellations of today. Now, what I've done for this talk is I've restricted this universe to the universe of Burma. Some of you might have been watching the news and seeing the amazing demonstrations of tens of thousands of monks marching through the streets of Rangoon and Mandalay over the last 6 days. And I traveled to Burma about 5 years ago, and actually some of those sketches